Think forward. Think Research Channel.
And we've got more kids overweight than ever before.
We need to turn off the TV.
The diseases of obesity are now beginning to occur in early childhood.
And all these children, when they grow up to be adults, are going to have major medical problems.
Obesity runs in families.
School districts have a responsibility to help in this problem.
Portion size is enormous.
75% of young kids are not adequately active.
Genetics loads the gun, and it's the environment that pulls the trigger.
If we don't do something to prevent this problem, it's going to bankrupt us.
Hello, I'm Kris Clark. This edition of Creating Health focuses on childhood obesity. It's a call to action to tackle what many say is the most significant health problem facing the United States today. Nationwide, more than 5 million children and adolescents are considered overweight or obese. We'll hear from educators, healthcare providers, and community activists about the causes and consequences of this national crisis and about what they're doing to reverse this trend.
Overweight can only result from an imbalance of what you eat for what you use up.
Over decades, we've been building activities out of our lives on a regular basis. That was okay as long as we still could walk to school, to parks, to play.
Today, television is so good, computer games are so good, and in some neighborhoods, you really are reluctant to send kids outside, so kids end up simply being physically inactive for long periods of time.
And all these children, when they grow up to be adults, are going to have major medical problems that would include elevated blood pressure, early diabetes, arthritis, worsening asthma, and cancer. And all of these things can help be staved off for longer periods of time, or even prevented in some cases, if we prevent the teens or the children from becoming overweight teens.
The good news is that prevention doesn't really require drastic action. Prevention really requires small changes. 100 calories a day for most children will make the difference. So increasing expenditure or decreasing intake by 1 cookie a day would be enough to prevent excessive weight gain over time.
If we're mandated to do this by the state, then why aren't we doing this? We do all these other screenings. We do hearing, if there's a hearing or vision problem with scoliosis, call the parents. They have to be informed. They should go see their doc. They should go to the ophthalmologist, blah, blah, blah. Here we go. We have this other problem, and we're supposed to put it in a drawer. We're supposed to sit on this information, and we're supposed to act like nothing's going on. Well, we act like nothing's going on. Pediatricians act like nothing's going on. Who has responsibility for this problem? I'm not saying we have sole responsibility, but we do have a piece in this.
Overweight is a health problem. It's not a cosmetic problem. Administrators and health educators at the East Penn School District near Allentown acknowledge that view wholeheartedly. In the fall of 2001, they began sending letters home to parents, alerting them if their child's weight posed potential health problems. George Julkowski, Director of Pupil Personnel Services, drafted the letter. The decision to proactively address the problem, he says, was a difficult one.
We literally did about 12 to 13 drafts of that letter. We meticulously looked at every word and took it apart, and we were trying to be sensitive.
When we got the letter that said that one of our kids had a high BMI, we're both active, and so I admit it was a bit of a shock.
The initial purpose of the letter was to make people aware of the inherent health risks.
It was pretty much just a wake-up call, just brought it to our attention that we needed to be careful that she had good eating habits and was being provided with good, healthy food, and that we were giving her enough encouragement and outlet for exercise.
Parents can look at their child very easily and see if they're overweight. They may be very sensitive about that issue and they don't know how to address it, but they should ask their child, what do you think? How do you feel? Do you feel like you are overweight? Do you feel like there's any issues happening at school?
She's definitely conscious of it. I mean, she wants to start up kind of a program. And, you know, we're all for that, but it's good that it's being initiated by her.
The second purpose of the letter was to create awareness in our community that we are not immune from this problem. This is a national problem. We're right there. We gave them the stats. We showed them how we compared, through the stuff that had come out through the Center for Disease Control. Well, the big deal is if you have 13 to 15% of your kids who are overweight or obese, that's a big deal. I mean, that number should be 1% or 2%, not 15. So we stand at probably the national average, and guess what? That's not a good place to be. We are where we don't want to be, period.
We know that at the age of 6, a child has about a 25% chance of becoming obese or being obese as an adult. By the time they're 12, it's about a 75% chance that they'll remain obese as adults. That certainly suggests that prevention is really the key.
With Sophie and with our kids in general, we're not going to make them obsessed about their weight or their look or how they fit into clothes. We want to keep as far away from that stuff as possible because they're getting enough pressures from TV and media and magazines along those lines. So that's not going to be our emphasis ever. We'll de-emphasize it.
We don't care, didn't care, continue not to care about the cosmetic aspects of this. We don't care how kids look.
Our whole thing is going to be just healthy eating, and we talk about that a lot. But probably even more than healthy eating, I think, for me, is just staying fit, staying active. I think that goes a long ways just toward long-term health and weight control.
It's more being aware of portion, what's appropriate for her age, because I tend to just give all the kids the same amount and kind of recognizing, okay, they're different ages, they should get different amounts.
And we hadn't even thought of that. It's kind of ridiculous to admit, but we think about that all the time.
In terms of nutrition, we started doing all kinds of things. We've taken all the unhealthy snacks out of the machines. There's no more candy, there's no more, if there's anything in there, it's baked stuff. We have a lot of pretzels, we have a lot of fruit-oriented snacks, okay? The soda machines went. The Snapple machines went. These were not real easy things, okay? Just recently, we took all the whole milk out of the East Penn School District. Your choices now are you have skim, you have 1%, 2%, you have 100% juice, or you have water. But what's interesting is we're at the same level now with snacks. We're at the same level with the kids drinking the stuff as we were before. So we're looking for vendors that are out there that can help us to offer better snacks in our machines, but it's a problem because it costs a lot more for better snacks.
It is possible to change children's preferences within cafeteria lines. There's been a very nice study which shows that when you subsidize the cost of fruits and vegetables and make them attractive, children and teenagers will eat them. Now, subsidizing the prices of those is not a sustainable strategy. But we've shown in another study that if you increase the price on the less healthful alternatives, you can continue to subsidize the fruits and vegetables, show the same impact on consumption, and it's revenue neutral. That is, the bottom line remains the same.
This awareness thing has gone to every level. It's with the kids, it's with the parents, it's with our faculty, it's with the school district as a whole.
I'm pretty confident it'll work itself out, but I certainly appreciate the school kind of bringing it to our attention.
I believe that schools can make a difference. I think schools better be part of making a difference, or else all these problems we're talking about, they're not going to be isolated to homes and families and medical institutions. They'll creep back into schools, and we're going to have unintended consequences for kids who aren't very fit, who aren't really alert, who aren't doing their best don't have the ability to do their best in school.
One of the biggest concerns and the most radical developments associated with childhood overweight is the increased frequency of type 2 diabetes. Dr. Ronald Williams runs the Pediatric Multidisciplinary Weight Loss Program at Penn State Children's Hospital. One of only a small but growing number of clinics geared toward overweight children, its weight loss program is designed to be simple and easy to follow.
I started to get a handful of type 2 diabetics, which is the adult onset diabetes that I never saw before in my career. And now I had 5 to 10 I was managing. And we decided we needed to do something about obesity. So we came up with a program, and it worked out very well. I tell them, your blood pressure's elevated. You've got the markings on your neck that suggest that you have higher levels of insulin in your body than you need to, and these are the precursors for elevated blood pressure and diabetes. I focus on their family history and say, here's where we're at, and here's where we're going. I can usually see their growth curves, which they're usually growing exponentially. I can plot them out and just show them the line that says when they get to be 18 to 20 years of age, they're going to weigh anywhere from 250 to 400 pounds. And that's a big eye-opener for the kids, the teens, and the parents.
Most of my friends are smaller than I am, and I don't know, it made me feel different, really different.
You can either continue on your current path and go where the crystal ball tells me you're going, or we can change and do something different. And then we try and make the program as simple as possible to take it in baby steps so that we can get them to buy in and get them to change their habits over time. This is not a short-term weight loss program.
What motivated me to enroll in Dr. Williams' program, probably because the way I looked, but I think Mom would have different reasons.
Yeah, it was to the point where she had some health issues, some major ones that could be really drastic, heart problems, borderline diabetic. So I knew there had to be something done.
There are several goals for treatment. It depends on how overweight the child is. For those children who are just moderately overweight and not in the obese category, a lot of times we just talk about weight maintenance to allow them to stay at this current weight and let them grow into their weight as they get older. For others who are overweight and they have medical complications, it is appropriate for them to lose some weight right off the bat, maybe just a few pounds, to help get their medical complications in line.
Yeah, I did lose 2 dress sizes, and I was really happy about that.
Overall health can be improved with just moderate weight loss.
The breathing problem has cleared up. Occasionally, I am an asthmatic, so I tend to wheeze sometimes, but it's clear. I haven't had to use my inhaler, I think, all year. So that's really good.
The role of the family is critical. They both help and they hurt.
My mom helps me choose the right foods even though I don't want to. She takes me to go exercise if I need to, because I know I need to.
Obviously, if a parent doesn't buy in, especially the one who's buying the food and cooking, game's over, we've lost. Because even if the child wants to, they're not in the right environment for it.
And by the way that I'm cooking for her, it's also benefiting me. It's benefiting my youngest daughter. And so it's healthy for us all. It's not just for Cortina, even though that was my motivation.
This has less calories. This has no fat.
The first thing we do is move all their liquids to diet. You'd be amazed at how many calories children and teens are consuming just from drinks. I had one teenager that was drinking 2 2-liter bottles of Mountain Dew a day. Thousands of calories just from that.
You have to substitute and learn, but you'll get the hang of it. If you really want to be on the diet, you'll feel better. You'll feel a lot better about the choices you made today. And then tomorrow, you'll feel even better.
As far as the mealtime goes, we take whatever they're usually eating and we give them 15% less. So 15% less hits the plate. Now the teenagers and the kids are going to be hungry if they're eating 15% less. So we do a trick. And basically, we have them drink a full 8 to 16 ounce glass of water at the very beginning of the meal. All the food's on the table, they're ready to chow down. They drink down the water and immediately start to eat. The water is a partial filler, so it fills the stomach partially with no calories. And when they eat, the food sucks up the water so it stays in the stomach. If you get a plate of food that's less than you're normally going to eat, your eyes tell you you're going to be hungry before you take your first bite. So what we do is we retrain the eyes to say, yes, I can eat less and feel just as full. And if we do that in a diet, we can go on to the next day, because if we feel hungry, game's over. We talk about how to cook the food. We cook the food in a way that the fat trips away from it.
We try to buy differently. We make food differently without losing too much of a good taste.
And the last one's the E word. Everybody knows that. It's exercise. I want to get a habit started very early and one they can do, so we start really simple. I just ask them for 2 minutes of exercise a day. You have to move, doing something aerobically, constantly without stopping for 2 minutes. And anybody can find 2 minutes in their day, but it's got to be 7 days a week. There's no vacation. Next week, we go to 2.5 minutes. And the following week, 3 minutes. And eventually get to 20 minutes a day. But we've got a habit started here.
Actually, my grandmother signed me up for Fit for Life, and I didn't want to do that. I was hesitant, but I went there. I enjoyed it, and then I got my best friend to help join. So we do that together, and that's probably what keeps me going.
And then we talk about eating out. Many families eat out. They go to fast food places or wherever. So I take whatever they're doing once a week, twice a week, 10 times a week, just cut it in half. When you go out to eat, two things happen. It costs you more money, and they're going to eat more calories than they would if they were at home. That's a pretty basic fact. And I usually tie in a reward to the weight loss program, which I think is incredibly important, probably the most important thing, that when they drink their water, when they eat the 15% less, and they exercise, they get rewarded every day for the first 2 to 4 weeks.
It made her really feel good when Dr. Williams came in and we found out she lost weight, and he jumped up and down for her, to keep it motivated, And he says, I'll jump up and down for you every time you lose weight. So, because he was happy, she was, that she reached that milestone.
Change is hard no matter what it is, even if it's a good change. And if we get rewarded, then it makes it easier to do it again.
I love you. Love you too. I am proud of you. I don't know how many times I tell you that.
Kids should be active at minimum 30 minutes of moderate to vigorous physical activity in a given day. Nearly 75% of kids in the United States do not meet those minimum guidelines.
Children come into this world physically active, but somewhere, we think about age 10 to 12, they start slowing down, and there is a little bit of evidence to suggest that about that age, youngsters make a decision. I'm physically active, I'm athletic, that's my thing, or that's not my thing.
Unfortunately, kids feel that if they aren't engaged in a structured activity like soccer or Little League baseball, that they don't have any opportunities to be physically active. And this is untrue. There's a lot of new programs out there.
Today there's a change, there's a revolution going on in physical education. And we're realizing that nothing wrong with team sports, but not all kids are advocates of team sports. So today we're seeing more alternative kinds of sports that youngsters can do for a lifetime.
We've added a mountain biking unit. We're trying to get more dance into the curriculum. We're moved self-defense into the curriculum, racket sports, things that kids can do for the rest of their lives. If you look at the adult society, how many people do a team activity for fitness?
Youngsters, for example, would have some choices that they wouldn't all be expected to do the same thing, the same time, the same way. We certainly wouldn't see captains picking teams. We would see a lot of physical activity, not one ball for the whole class, but maybe a bunch of small games going on, for example. It's the kind of environment that's not negative. Kids aren't being humiliated. It's kind of a caring, positive, fun, upbeat environment.
Every teacher that does it says, yes, it's hard. There's a lot of, maintenance, and you have to maintain the bikes and do this and do that. But it's all worth it when the kids come into class and they love being there. The discipline problems don't exist because kids are excited about the activities they're participating in.
The other factor that I think is important is that our bodies remember. So you teach a youngster to ride a bike, and then as they age, they may not have ridden a bike for 10 years, but they can still ride the bike. They can still swim.
We need to set up our lessons so that, a low-fit kid, maybe we go for times instead of distances. We do a 10-minute run. He can run at his pace in his target heart rate zone for 10 minutes. So can the best athlete in class. And they're both getting a good workout, rather than just saying everybody goes and runs a mile. For some kids, that's not a workout. For other kids, that's too much of a workout.
One of the most difficult parts about getting people to be physically active is catching them or selling them on physical activity. It isn't enough just to tell them, guess what, exercise is good for your health.
They don't think about long-term benefits. It's simply immediate. Is it fun now? If I like it, I want to do it.
One of the big benefits of fitness and the types of activities we're teaching is that people can do them together. The other team sports, the parents on the sideline watching, and the kids are playing. Now you can get the whole family healthy and out being active. They can all bike together. They can all do all these activities together.
There are different roles that mothers and fathers can play in getting kids up and moving. We find that father's own activity is terribly important for kids, that there it seems to be fathers who are the important role models. It tends to be mothers who are the ones who more often, not always, but more often are the ones who sign kids up for organized activities, who drive them to those activities. And mothers may also, of course, be good models.
Unfortunately, right now, we know that girls and women at all ages are the most sedentary at any age compared to men. And so the critical question is why? Why are girls less active? When you look at factors like sweating and messing up your hair, and girls are developing at this time, they're very self-conscious about their body and their shape. We have to figure out activities by asking girls what are activities that they enjoy. Is it that we need to add more classes into the middle schools that involve dancing, and potentially separating boys and girls out of physical activity programs so girls can engage in activity and not feel self-conscious like they're being evaluated by their male peers?
One of the recent innovations that was probably not designed to motivate kids to be physically active, but that is in fact encouraging a lot of kids to be physically active, is a video game called Dance Dance Revolution. It's a video with music, and then kids actually move on what's called a dance pad, and they move their feet. You see the video, you hear the music, and then the challenge is to move your feet to the music. It starts off slowly, and then you can get better and better. It grabs some kids. For some kids, they love it, and not necessarily the team sport kind of kids. Dance Dance Revolution tells us about ways to appeal to kids. This is a video age, it's a music age, and so we can find ways to appeal to kids that's not necessarily the traditional team sports, that's not necessarily fitness per se, and I think that's the direction we need to pursue if we're really going to turn around this obesity epidemic.
Parents and schools play a critical role in creating environments that increase physical activity. Communities can play a role as well. Dan Burden, director of Walkable Communities, says over the past several decades, we have essentially engineered physical activity out of our lives. People will walk more, he says, if we create a community environment that allows them to walk.
The supersizing of our food, which is also happening with the supersizing of our stores, our parks, our schools, and everything, in combination is supersizing our bodies. What we find is if we have most of the homes within 1/8 mile of a park, that's like only 700 or 800 feet, then people take ownership of that park. They go to the park, they use the park. If the park is as far away as, say, 1/4 mile, most people no longer think of that as their park, and therefore might not even go to it. So where we put things becomes absolutely critical. You've got to have retail in your neighborhood. It doesn't have to be big. Just something as simple as a dairy bar or a little tiny grocer or druggist or something like that gives a person a destination, a place to go to, an excuse. Every time we lose a post office, and now it's on the suburbs or the edge of town, it means more and more people are going to get in a car to go to their post office and no longer walk there. So when things become too big, they destroy the ability for people to go out and do the simple things like take walks.
Working on solutions to the obesity epidemic is a community-wide effort in West Philadelphia. Students at University City High School collaborate with teachers, neighborhood groups, and community leaders, and the University of Pennsylvania to provide healthy alternatives and nutrition education to city residents. Antoine Clark, a senior at University City High School, was asked to testify before a congressional committee about how their innovative programs are making a difference.
They were kind of surprised that all the things I had to tell them, they didn't know we had such great programs and we could do such great things. And I was trying to let them know that this is not like a special place. I mean, it's a special place to be, but the programs we run here can be run anywhere. Any students anywhere can do this as long as they have the determination and the will and the opportunity to do so.
Some of the activities we've developed are school-based produce stands, school-based farmers markets, school-based gardens that involve children actually growing foods. We think that schools can serve as centers for neighborhood transformation, bringing community members into schools, bringing more resources into schools, keeping schools open in the evening hours for nutrition education, fitness.
There's a lot of schoolyards in the school district of Philadelphia that it's barren green spaces. They're just dying to become community gardens and habitat restoration projects.
It came about as an idea from some of the students. Thought that there weren't enough supermarkets here that offered fresh produce and available to the general public, so we decided to look at ways we could solve that problem.
These are problems that really hit home with a lot of students, and so when they have an opportunity to contribute to the solution of those problems through their activities at school, it improves their motivation.
Most people don't eat healthy, and most people, that's why there's a high blood pressure, obesity, and things like that in inner cities, because there's a lot of fast food restaurants, but there's not a lot of places where you can get fresh produce and fresh vegetables, and there's not a lot of knowledge of those things. So this is very important as far as getting everybody to know how to eat, know what to eat, and give them an opportunity to get those nutritious things from the neighborhood.
We've made salads in the classroom from produce that we've grown in the garden. And the kids are fascinated. Many of them, this is the first time that they've sampled these kinds of things, that they've been exposed to them.
Is this good to me?
Even people in the community are amazed that on a former vacant lot, we now grow 1-pound sized tomatoes and we grow huge onions, that our strawberry patch is now 5 years old.
We've done some evaluation to show that young people involved in growing food are more likely to eat a greater variety of foods, especially, to try the foods that they're producing.
It's what we as adults expose them to. From the gardening project and things that I've done with kindergarten kids, it's amazing. Don't underestimate what a 5-year-old can understand and what concepts they can pick up at an early age. They might not understand all the nutrition concepts at 5 years old, but when they get to middle school and their reading improves, they will be able to understand and become an educated consumer at a much earlier age.
Parents, educators, healthcare providers, we all have a stake in this. What can you do to combat childhood obesity? The simple answer is help kids eat less and exercise more. Prevention is the key, and weight control is a lifelong effort. Childhood obesity isn't something that happened overnight, and it's not a problem that's going to be solved overnight. The important thing is that you start today. I'm Kris Clark for Creating Health.